When I was in grade 2, I was diagnosed with ADD. Seeing that this mental condition was affecting how I was doing in school, my parents decided to start making me take prescribed medication. From grade 2 to grade 6, I took Ritalin, and from grade 6 to very recently, I've been taking Adderall. A few weeks ago, I quit my medication, but I have always wondered what effects these medications had on the behavior of people that took them. Now, obviously, I had lived these behavioral changes before, but I wanted to go deeper than that. During the next few minutes, I will be talking to you about what ADD is, what the prescribed medications are, and how these medications affect one's behavior. I will also be talking about my experiences and how I can relate to these behavioral changes. ADD and medication. First of all, let's start by talking about what ADD really is. ADD, or attention deficit disorder, is a neurological disorder that was recognized as a mental condition in 1980. It is one of the most diagnosed mental conditions in all of North America, as there are approximately 30 million people diagnosed within the US alone. This whopping number goes to show how common this condition is. The main symptoms of ADD are short attention span, anger, impulsive reactions, being on the defensive, loss of memory, procrastination, disorganization, addiction problems, and hyperactivity. There are 6 different categories of medications to reduce the symptoms of ADD. Methylphenidate, dextroamphetamine, amphetamine, atomoxetine, bupropion, and alpha-2 agonists. These medications don't get rid of the symptoms. They simply reduce them for a short period of time. I will be focusing on methylphenidate and amphetamine because these are the only ones I have used. Next, I would like to examine what Ritalin and Adderall are and what happens in your brain when you take them. But before that, I would like to talk about what happens in your brain when what happens in someone with ADD's brain when they haven't taken their medication. People with ADD have what I like to call a lazy cortex. This means that their brain needs to be constantly stimulated by the task at hand. It needs a sort of kick to get pumped up. If it doesn't get that kick, then the frontal cortex is less empowered and the person will have less ability to hold things in mind for a longer period of time, and they will get distracted much easier than other people. A prime example is a child with ADD that might be addicted to video games. They say that they can remember all sorts of things when they're sitting in front of the computer, but they can't remember anything from class and school, or pay attention to any of their courses. And they can't hold anything in mind for their disorganizational problems. This is because the area of the brain is sort of not turned on enough. The limbic part of the attention system, the mesolimbic system, aka the reward network or the addiction network, is flawed. People with ADD have a difference in their genes that make them have less dopamine 2 receptors, which causes them to not have enough motivation to sustain attention in situations that aren't highly charged. So they seek high intensity activities or high intensity situations. There's this need for enough of a stimulus out there, enough of a challenge for the whole system to overcome the difference. So people with ADD try to find something to get their dopamine up and give the brain the sort of juice that it needs. They end up liking this feeling once they find it, and they end up getting addicted. This is why people with ADD have an extremely high chance of getting addicted. Now, let's talk about what ADD is and what it does when you are under its influence. Let's talk about what Ritalin is and what it does when you are under its influence. Ritalin is a methylphenidate. It is taken in 3 different forms of short-acting tablets: 5, 10, and 20 milligrams. These tablets last for 3 to 4 hours and should be taken twice a day, one at breakfast and one at lunch. Common side effects felt while taking these pills are insomnia, decreased appetite, weight loss, headaches, irritability, stomach aches, and rebound agitation. Ritalin is a methylphenidate, and methylphenidate is a norepinephrine and dopamine inhibitor. This means that it increases the level of dopamine neurotransmitter in the brain by partially blocking the DAT or dopamine transmitter. The DAT removes dopamine from the synapses. Blocking it has the effect of keeping dopamine in the synapses, thus increasing the amount of dopamine in the synapses. Next, I will examine Adderall. Adderall is an amphetamine. It is taken in 6 different forms of long-acting capsules: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 milligrams. These capsules are taken once every morning. They last for 10 to 12 hours. The common side effects felt while taking these capsules are insomnia, decreased appetite, weight loss, headaches, irritability, stomach aches, and rebound agitation, or exaggeration of pre-medication symptoms as it is wearing off. This means that while the medication is wearing off, the symptoms of ADD are exaggerated. Adderall is an amphetamine. Amphetamine, much like methylphenidate, stimulates the release of dopamine into the synapses. However, unlike methylphenidate, amphetamine is known to make the DATs work in reverse, thus spitting dopamine into the synaptic cleft, if you will. Therefore, amphetamine stimulates the release of dopamine molecules into the synapses. Amphetamine has also been found to have a similar effect on norepinephrine. We have just observed what Ritalin and Adderall are and how they affect the brain. Now let's observe all of these changes on dopamine and neurotransmitter. How all of these changes on dopamine and neurotransmitters affect the behavior of patients. Let's start with Ritalin. One of the main side effects of Ritalin is insomnia. It may not seem that obvious at first, but insomnia has a very big effect on behavior. Think about it. The more a person is tired, the more absent-minded he is. Also, loss of sleep makes people more irritable. The increase of dopamine in the brain also causes the patient to have less of a tendency to get defocused and helps the patient focus on less stimulating tasks without getting defocused. It also keeps the patient from reacting impulsively to situations, getting angry and flying off the handle at any given time. Adderall also causes the same things because of the fact that it increases the dopamine level in the brain and because it causes heavy insomnia. Now, I'd like to talk about how I experienced changes in my behavior when taking Ritalin and Adderall. I'd also like to talk about how my behavior changed when I stopped taking these medications. First off, when I took Ritalin, I was fairly young, about from grade 2 to grade 6, so I may not remember everything, but I do remember being fairly antisocial, having recurring headaches, always being tired, and not being motivated to do anything. Now, in grade 6, however, when I started taking my Adderall, I was still antisocial. I was extremely quiet, unsure of myself. I had a very low self-esteem, and was never hungry at school or at home. However, I was attentive in class, but still disorganized. But one thing I noticed is I could work very well under pressure, and I was always extremely stressed out, and I still had trouble sleeping. Now, this affected my performance at school and homework-wise. Now, when I recently stopped taking Adderall, however, I noticed a drastic change in my behavior. I became much happier, more social, more active. I regained my appetite. I gained weight. In 3 weeks, I ended up gaining 15 pounds. However, I also saw that I was way more distracted, extremely forgetful, even less organized than before, and my tendency to work at the last minute got even worse. Actually, I got extremely late on all my classes, and I saw that my performance at school really went downhill. But socially, and if I measure it through a level of happiness, I am much happier now than I was before when I was on my pill. So in conclusion, ADD medications alone won't do the trick to get rid of ADD symptoms. Yes, they may help, but as I learned the hard way, you need to do a huge effort in order to shape your behavior. Medication may help, but it takes real effort on your part to get rid of symptoms. Taking medication as a crutch instead of seeing a specialist to help you control your symptoms is not the right thing to do. You should, if you do have ADD, I personally, I believe that you should go see a counselor and try to solve them yourself instead of taking a pill, because eventually you're going to have to quit this pill. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.